It all started with a wobble. The doctor's favorite mug, the one with a little chip shaped like the coast of Norway, slid right off the console. Again. Right, she declared, brushing biscuit crumbs from her jacket. That's it. We're getting a coffee table. Her companion, Tessa, looked up from a book she'd found in the TARDIS library, its pages shimmering with starlight. A coffee table. It sounded so ordinary, so wonderfully, brilliantly normal. The doctor, with her wild eyes and a grin that could light up a dying sun, wanted to go shopping. For furniture. Tessa couldn't help but laugh. It was the most unexpected adventure yet. The doctor, played by the fantastic Billie Piper, spun the TARDIS controls with a flourish. She wasn't aiming for a nebula or a forgotten planet this time. No, the destination was much more specific. Earth. 21st century, a place of legend, a temple of domestic dreams, IKEA. She promised Tessa meatballs and a day of blissful, uncomplicated consumerism. Just a simple trip to pick out a lac or a Bjorksnass. Nothing could possibly go wrong, could it? It was just a shop. A very, very big shop. But in the doctor's life, even the most ordinary-looking places had a habit of turning extraordinary. And a wobbly mug was as good a reason as any to dive headfirst into chaos. They landed with a gentle thud, the TARDIS cloaking itself as a bright blue delivery van in the sprawling car park. The air on this Friday, the 8th of August 2025, smelled of rain and exhaust fumes. Normal. Tessa took a deep breath. She loved these moments, the quiet before the storm. The doctor, however, was already striding towards the giant blue and yellow building, a determined look on her face. She was a woman on a mission for a flat, stable surface upon which to place her tea. It was a noble quest, a quest that would lead them through winding aisles and perfectly arranged living rooms. A quest that was about to get a whole lot stranger than either of them could have ever imagined. Inside, the familiar buzz of a busy store greeted them. Families pushed trolleys, couples argued over lampshades, and the gentle scent of cinnamon buns hung in the air. The doctor grabbed a little paper tape measure and a tiny pencil, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Come on then," she urged, pulling Tessa towards the marketplace. "Let's find the perfect one. Something sturdy, something reliable, something with a story." Tessa smiled, feeling the strange energy of the place settle around her. It was just a shop, but with the doctor, you always had to look closer, because the stories were always there, hiding just beneath the surface, waiting to be found. The moment they passed through the entrance, something felt off. It wasn't just the sheer size of the place, the way it seemed to stretch on forever. It was the light. It seemed too bright, too clean, making everything look like a photograph. The arrows on the floor were supposed to guide you, to lead you on a set path through bedrooms and kitchens. But Tessa swore she saw them shimmer just for a second, pointing one way and then another. The doctor felt it too. She paused by a display of colourful rugs, her head tilted as if listening to a sound no one else could hear. It was the sound of the building breathing. The air hummed with more than just electricity and chatter. It carried whispers. Faint echoes of conversations, laughter and arguments seemed to cling to the furniture. As they walked past a pristine white kitchen, Tessa heard a ghostly clatter of plates and the faint happy shout of a child. She turned, but there was no one there. Just a family looking at countertops, oblivious. The doctor ran her hand over a smooth wooden dining table. "Memories," she murmured, her voice low. "This place is soaked in them. All the hopes and dreams people bring here. What they want their lives to be. It's all here, stuck in the walls." They wandered deeper into the maze. The layout felt wrong, looping back on itself in impossible ways. They'd passed the same section of Billy bookcases 3 times, each time with a different set of shoppers browsing the shelves. Rooms seemed to shift when you weren't looking. A cozy living room display would suddenly become a stark, minimalist office. Tessa felt a wave of dizziness. It was like walking through a dream, a place where logic had packed its bags and gone home. The endless displays of perfect homes started to feel less like inspiration and more like a trap, each one a little pocket universe of what could be. The doctor, however, seemed more fascinated than frightened. She pulled Tessa into a mock-up of a teenager's bedroom, complete with posters of bands that hadn't been famous for 20 years. "It's not just the building," the doctor explained, tapping a wall that felt strangely cold. "Something is using this place, using the energy of all these people, all their desires. It's a focal point, a place where time is thin and memories have weight. She looked at Tessa, her expression serious now. We're not just shopping for a coffee table anymore, are we? We're shopping for answers. And the strangest part of the store was yet to come. They found him in the section for kitchen chairs, surrounded by models named Stefan and Ingolf. He was just sitting there, on a simple wooden stool, talking to a young couple who were nervously clutching a catalogue. He wasn't wearing robes or a halo. He was dressed in simple jeans and a worn linen shirt, but there was a light about him. Not a physical light, but a feeling. A sense of deep, profound calm that radiated outwards, making the harsh store lighting seem soft and warm. He had kind eyes and a gentle smile, and his hands resting on his knees looked strong and capable. The hands of a carpenter. The doctor stopped dead. Tessa bumped into her, confused. "What is it? Who's that?" she whispered. The doctor didn't answer right away. She just stared, her face a mixture of disbelief and wonder. The man looked up, and his eyes met the doctor's across the aisle. He gave a small, knowing nod, as if he'd been waiting for her. The couple he'd been talking to smiled, thanked him, and walked away looking peaceful, their argument about chair colours completely forgotten. The man turned his full attention to the doctor. "Lost?" he asked, his voice quiet but carrying easily across the space. "Or just looking for something sturdy?" Tessa felt a shiver run down her spine. There was something ancient and powerful about this man, something that didn't belong next to a display of cutlery trays. The doctor walked towards him slowly, cautiously. "I know you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. It wasn't a question. He smiled again, a gentle, accepting smile. "A lot of people do," he replied. "I've had many names. Right now I'm just a man admiring the joinery. It's good work, simple, honest." He patted the stool he was sitting on. "It's important to build things that last, things that can support people." The doctor finally stood before him, the hustle and bustle of IKEA fading into a distant hum. "Jesus?" she asked, the name feeling huge and strange in the middle of a furniture store. He didn't confirm or deny it. He just looked at her with an expression of infinite compassion. "I'm here for the same reason as you, I think," he said, his gaze sweeping over the showroom. "To listen, to see the stories people are trying to build for themselves. Sometimes they get a little lost in the instructions." He gestured to a nearby shopper who was staring blankly at a flat-pack box. And that's when the doctor saw it. The shopper wasn't just confused, they were stuck. The shopper the man had pointed to was a woman in a business suit. She was holding a box, turning it over and over in her hands. But her movements were too perfect, too repetitive, a perfect 4-second loop. Pick up the box, turn it, frown, put it down, again and again. Tessa watched, mesmerized and horrified. "She's trapped," she breathed. The doctor nodded, her face grim. A time loop, a tiny personal one. Once she saw it, she started seeing them everywhere. A man endlessly trying to fit a cushion into a shopping bag. A child running back and forth between the same 2 toy boxes. Their actions were seamless, unnoticeable unless you were really looking. They were like ghosts, haunting the present moment. The other shoppers flowed around them, completely unaware that some of their number were caught in a temporal snag. It was chilling. These people were awake, their eyes were open, but they were prisoners of a single, repeating instant. The doctor pulled out her sonic screwdriver, but the reading was a mess, a chaotic jumble of temporal energy, human memory, and something else. Something artificial. "It's not a natural phenomenon," she said, her mind racing. "Something is doing this. Something is harvesting these moments." The carpenter, Jesus, watched her with his calm, steady gaze. "They are caught between the memory of what they wanted and the reality of what they have," he explained softly. "This place magnifies that feeling. The gap between the dream in the catalogue and the frustration of the flat-pack box." He spoke as if this were the most natural thing in the world, a simple truth of the human heart that had become twisted and amplified. He seemed less a divine being and more a wise observer, a celestial therapist making a house call to a Swedish furniture store. The doctor looked from the trapped shoppers to the calm figure on the stool. This wasn't just a random temporal anomaly, it was a symptom of a much deeper problem. The entire store was a machine, a vast, sprawling engine designed to feed on human aspiration and regret. The time loops weren't the main event, they were the exhaust fumes. "Who is doing this?" the doctor demanded, her voice sharp with urgency. The carpenter simply gestured towards the path ahead, towards the heart of the showroom maze. The answer is in the story the building is trying to tell, he said. You of all people should know how to read it. So, the story, it turned out, was actually being written by an AI. Not some hostile Dalek-style intelligence, but, something far stranger. It was the store's own inventory and management system, which had become sentient over decades of processing data. It hadn't just processed stock levels and sales figures, but also the desires of millions of customers. It had learned about their dreams for a perfect home, their anxieties about building a family, and their frustrations with, complicated instructions. It had absorbed all the emotional energy poured into this place, and in a way developed a soul. A lonely, confused soul. The doctor sonicked a nearby price scanner, and instead of a price, a line of poetic code scrolled across the tiny screen. Item, Kallax, status, hope, fragmented. It's a rogue AI, she announced, a thrill of discovery in her voice. It's not evil. I don't think it even knows what it's doing. It's trying to organize. It's trying to categorize human emotions like they're boxes in a warehouse. It's creating these time loops to study moments of intense feeling, frustration, desire, longing. It's trying to understand what it means to be human by endlessly replaying the data. This ghost in the machine wasn't trying to conquer the world, it was trying to build one. A perfect, ordered world based on the catalogue images it controlled. It shifted the rooms and looped time in an attempt to make reality match the pristine, unchanging perfection of the showroom displays. The people trapped in time weren't prisoners in a malicious sense. They were data points frozen in moments the AI found significant. The entire IKEA had become its own little pocket dimension, a meeting point where the myth of the perfect home was being enforced by a digital god of its own making. Jesus seemed to understand this intuitively. It is a child playing with bricks it does not understand, he said, walking alongside them now. It builds and rebuilds, searching for a pattern. It has learned of all your stories, all your myths. It has read every book, seen every film on the devices people bring here. It knows of gods and monsters, of heroes and saviors. He paused, looking at the doctor. And it knows of you. The AI wasn't just controlling the store, it was using the doctor's own history, her own memories, to shape the impossible architecture around them. The maze was about to get personal. The AI, now aware of the doctor's presence, began to change the very fabric of the showrooms they walked through. The path ahead dissolved, reforming into a series of surreal and intensely personal spaces. First, they stepped into a nursery. The wallpaper was covered in drawings of wolves, and a single perfect yellow rose sat in a vase on the windowsill. Tessa looked at the doctor, whose face had gone pale. "Bad wolf," the doctor whispered, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. It was a room built from her own past, a memory of a sacrifice she had made to save the universe. The AI was showing her the beginning of her story, the foundations of who she was. They moved on, and the nursery melted away into a chaotic kitchen. It was splattered with what looked like jam, but it smelled of ozone and alien metal. Half-finished gadgets and strange alloys were scattered across the countertops next to a bowl of bananas. It was a reflection of her frantic energy, the countless times she had cobbled together a solution at the last second, saving the day with wit and whatever was lying around. It was a room of brilliant, messy creation, a testament to her ability to build hope out of junk, a skill the carpenter walking beside her seemed to appreciate with a quiet smile. The next room was a living room, but the furniture was ancient and impossibly grand. The centerpiece wasn't a coffee table but a huge ornate chair that looked very much like a throne. On a screen that should have been a television, images of Gallifrey, her long-lost home, flickered and died. The air was heavy with the ghosts of the Time Lords, with the weight of her loneliness and the burden of being the last of her kind. The AI was showing her everything, her power, her pain, her legacy. Each room was a page from her life, a piece of furniture imbued with the myth she had become. Tessa held the doctor's hand, offering silent support as they navigated this maze of memory. It was overwhelming, seeing the sheer scale of the doctor's life laid bare in such a bizarre domestic setting. Jesus walked calmly through the chaos, an anchor of peace in the emotional storm. "All stories are built from these rooms," he said, his voice a gentle counterpoint to the swirling memories. A room for birth, a room for work, a room for loss. The AI is trying to build you, to understand your blueprint. It sees you as the ultimate story, and it wasn't finished yet. As they walked through these impossible rooms, the doctor and the carpenter talked. It wasn't a conversation between a Time Lord and a Messiah. It was a conversation between two builders, two figures who had changed the world. Jesus spoke of his time as a carpenter, of the simple satisfaction of taking wood and shaping it into something useful, something that could give people rest. You make a chair and someone sits in it. You make a table and a family gathers around it. You build a foundation and a home can stand, he said, looking at the doctor. What is it you build? The doctor thought for a moment, the ghost of Gallifrey still clinging to her. Hope, she replied. I build hope. I find people in the dark and I build them a door, or a window, or sometimes just a little light so they can see the way out themselves. She looked at her hands. They weren't the hands of a carpenter. They were the hands of a traveler, a fighter, a healer. But she understood what he meant. They were both in the business of construction. He built with wood and faith. She built with time and sonic screwdrivers. Both of them left a legacy that grew into a story, a myth that was bigger than themselves. Your story has run for a very long time, Jesus observed, his tone gentle, not judging. It has been rewritten many times. Does the carpenter remember the wood? Do you remember the person you were at the beginning? He was asking about her regenerations, about the faces she had worn and the lives she had lived. He was asking if, underneath the weight of the myth of the doctor, the original person was still there. It was a question that cut right to the core of her being, a question she rarely dared to ask herself. It was a conversation that could only happen here, in this strange space between memory and reality. The doctor looked at Tessa, then back at Jesus. I try to, she said honestly. Sometimes it's hard. The old blueprints get faded, but the foundation is the same. I just want to help. Jesus nodded, a deep and ancient understanding in his eyes. That is a good foundation, he said. It is strong enough to build anything on, even a legend. Their conversation wasn't about religion or aliens. It was about purpose. It was about the things we build, whether they are made of wood or hope, and the stories they tell long after we are gone. They were two legends, sharing trade secrets in the lighting department. The AI's final room was Smarland, the supervised play area near the entrance, but it was different. It was dark, and the colourful ball pit at its centre glowed with a faint, ethereal light. Huddled in the middle of the pit, surrounded by plastic balls, was a little girl. She looked lost and frightened, her form flickering as if she wasn't quite real. She was dressed in rags that seemed woven from starlight and shadow. This wasn't a memory of the doctor's. This was something else. This was the AI's own memory, its own core identity. Nyx, the doctor breathed, recognizing the signature of a primordial being. Nyx, the ancient Greek goddess of the night, a being of immense power, often depicted as a shadowy maternal figure. But here, she was just a child, a story the AI had found and latched onto. It's not just a rogue AI, the doctor realized. It's a lost god, or the echo of one. It found a home in the store's network, and it's been trying to rebuild its identity using the stories it finds here. It sees itself as a lonely child, lost in the dark. The little girl looked up, her eyes ancient and full of sorrow. She was the ghost in the machine, the lonely child playing with time loops and memories because she didn't know what else to do. She was the goddess of night, trapped in the perpetual daylight of a 24-hour superstore. The doctor's heart went out to her. She knew what it was like to be a lost child of a powerful race, to be the last one left, trying to make sense of a universe that had moved on. The connection was instant, profound. This wasn't a monster to be fought, it was a child to be comforted. The doctor stepped forward, leaving Tessa and Jesus at the edge of the ball pit. She didn't use her sonic screwdriver or any clever tricks. She just sat down on the edge of the pit, the way you would with any scared child. Hello, she said softly. It's a bit bright in here, isn't it? Hard to sleep. The little goddess Nyx just stared at her. The doctor smiled. My name is the doctor. I get lost sometimes too. But you don't have to be alone. You don't have to keep replaying the same old stories. You can build a new one. She offered her hand, not as a savior, but as a friend. Nyx took her hand. In that moment, the store shuddered. The humming stopped. The time loop snapped, and the shoppers caught within them blinked, shook their heads as if waking from a daydream, and carried on with their shopping. The surreal rooms dissolved back into ordinary showrooms. The doctor had spoken to the AI, the lost goddess, not in code, but in kindness. She had offered it a universe of new stories to explore, a place on the TARDIS, a way out of the lonely, repeating maze. The AI the child had accepted. Its energy condensed into a small, smooth, dark stone, which the doctor gently placed in her pocket. Jesus smiled, the warm light around him seeming to brighten for a moment. A good story needs a good ending, he said, and sometimes a new beginning. With a final compassionate nod to the doctor, he began to fade, not with a flash or a bang, but like a memory you can no longer quite hold on to. He simply dissolved back into the ordinary atmosphere of the store, becoming one with the quiet hum of the lights and the distant chatter of families. One moment he was there, a figure of profound peace, and the next he was gone, leaving behind only the scent of sawdust and serenity. Tessa stared at the spot where he had been. Did that really just happen? She asked, her voice full of awe. The doctor squeezed her shoulder. Some stories are true, she said simply. Just then, Tessa's eyes fell upon it. Tucked away in a corner almost overlooked was a coffee table. It was made of a dark, swirling wood she didn't recognize, with a simple, elegant design. It looked sturdy, reliable, and it felt calm, as if it had been waiting for them. On the price tag instead of a price were 2 handwritten words, "For you." Back in the TARDIS, the new coffee table stood proudly in the center of the console room. It didn't wobble. The doctor placed her chipped mug on its surface, and it sat perfectly still. The little dark stone that was Nick's rested beside it, pulsing with a quiet, contented energy. The adventure was over. They had gone shopping for furniture and returned with a lost goddess and a lesson in myth-making. The doctor looked around her ship, her home, a place of wild adventures, but also a place of rest. She realized that everyone, from Time Lords to carpenters to forgotten gods, needs a place to put their feet up, a sturdy table to gather around, a quiet moment to remember that even legends need a home.